Welcome back to Texas Liberty Podcast. I'm Clark Patterson, and along with Ted Brown, tonight we'll be interviewing Girish Altekar. I probably butchered your name, Girish. I'm so sorry. He is running against Lloyd Doggett for Congress on November 5th, 2024. He is a Libertarian Party candidate, and we are so happy to have you as a guest tonight. So, Ted, why don't you start the first question?
Well, sure, Girish, welcome to the show. And I think our viewing audience here would want to hear about you. What's your background? How did you become a libertarian? And why are you running?
Sure. Thank you, Clark, Ted, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. And let me, I don't know how far back you want to go with my background, but I'm a first generation immigrant. I came to the United States in 1981. I came here on an assistantship to get my master's in computers and systems engineering. Once I finished that, I worked in different places, including Southern California, Massachusetts, and then I landed up in Texas, and I've been here since 1989. And I have had a small, well, I worked in various tech firms till about 1998 or so, at which point I call myself as becoming unemployable because I started my own business. So that's sort of my work history. I've had this tech business for almost 20 years now, and I am semi-retired, but I continue to dabble with different ideas professionally. How I became libertarian was actually in my business school. I did go to UT Option 2 MBA program, and I'd only vaguely heard about libertarians till at that time. This was in 1993, 94. But a professor friend of mine was very adamantly anti-government. And he was very forceful. He was very clear about his thinking, and then we asked him, well, if it's not the Democrats or the Republicans, then what do you vote for? Who do you vote for? And he actually never said anything, but he said there are other parties out there that you might want to explore, and I did. And once I did my reading for about a year or so, I became a libertarian in 1995, and I have been a voting, contributing member of the party since then.
Well, you're an old timer. Yeah, you're an old timer there in the party for sure, which is excellent. So have you run before, or is this the first time you're running? And why did you throw your hat in the ring this time?
Yeah, no, I have never run before. I've been sort of a passive member of the party, passive in the sense that I contribute and and I support candidates, but I've never considered myself as a political animal. So I never did run, even though I knew that people were running sometimes just to give libertarian voters a choice. But this time it was different. I do have some time, and there was a considerable amount of arm twisting, but I figured it was my time. It was we have to do everything we can to move forward the ideas that we hold precious, and I had the wherewithal to pay my ballot access fees, or what do you call them, ballot fees, or whatever they are. Mm-hmm. And I decided to see how far could I take this if I did actually run, and if I did actually campaign actively, which I'm doing. Does it make a difference? And that's sort of one of the sub goals of running. And I'm reaching out to lots of people, and hopefully the ideas that I talk about stay with them. And not only does it show it in results in my race, even though I'm not looking into airfares to DC, but not only I'm hoping that it shows up in my race, but also it creates an environment for the future guys or gals who want to throw their hat in the ring.
Well, excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for running. Scott or Clark, Clark, your turn.
Well, yes, Girish, to finish kind of continuing along with Ted's questions, are there any particular issues in this year's campaign that you want to stress? Now, of course, you're running against a Democrat incumbent, Lloyd Doggett, who has been the congressman, maybe not in your seat, but he's been a congressman really since the 1990s, maybe even, well, let's say 1990s. So he's been.
This is his 15th run.
Wow. Okay.
Yes,
For
U.S. Congress now, I think it's a 15th run, but I think it could mean including Texas offices and the U.S. Congress.
Well, I think I just read that he's completing over 50 years in office. He was a state senator and a state Supreme Court justice previously, apparently, and so he's really had a long career since he was like a young guy in his 20s, actually.
Well, he and Biden were contemporaries. They actually joined the U.S. Congress, I think, in the same year.
Well, actually, I do know this. I think actually Doggett, because I've been here so long, I've been here since 1979. Lloyd Doggett he would be 77. He's one of the so-called Watergate babies. I think you remember that after the resignation of Richard Nixon I guess it was summer 1974, the Democrats did very well. And Lloyd Doggett, this is 1974, which is exactly 50 years ago. He came in on that wave. I believe he was like 26. He was barely old enough to run for Texas State House. He was in the Texas State House for quite a while. Then, I think then he became a Texas state senator. But in other words, he was what was once called a Watergate baby. So he came in on the heels of the Nixon resignation. The Democrats got a big bounce, obviously, because no president, well, I guess still today, no president. Nixon was the only president to ever resign. So he came in, a young whippersnapper in his mid-20s. But so he's been there exactly 50 years this year. But I think, again, at first it was state house, then state senator. And again, I only know this because I've lived in Austin since 1979. Right. And then he ran for... I'm sorry, go ahead.
The question is, should there be term limits? I think would be a good question after all that.
Well, for Biden...
Should there be age limits? I recently wrote a letter to the editor in the Statesman, which was actually published, and you can just go to the Statesman letters section and search for my name and you'll find it. But which essentially says when Biden came out, when Doggett came out asking Biden to step aside, I said perhaps he's not self-aware enough to know that he's about the same age and the same questions apply to him. But if we do have a constitutional amendment that limits people who can run to some age, 75, let's say, wouldn't we have been spared so many luminaries that we know now in Congress, in Senate, and everywhere? So they actually published that letter, which was gratifying.
Well, now, have you engaged with anyone in the Doggett campaign or in I believe we had mentioned before we went on air that Jenny, I believe her name is Jenny Garcia Sharon. She is the Republican candidate, but it's very possible, Girish, that the Republicans, because that race is not competitive, often even major parties won't give much money or support to people in races such as, your district, which I believe is 35. Well, I guess we should get the district
37.
right. 37, excuse me. I was in 35 until a few weeks ago. Yeah, so in 37, because it's so lopsided, even though the Republicans are a major party, they don't see any reason to give money or support. It's kind of a sad commentary. But have you had any discussions with any of the Republicans or Democrats in your race at all in your district?
No, I haven't. And yeah, like I said, it's my first run. I'm not quite sure what would have come out of it had I explored. I mean, Sharon did not even have a website up until about 2-3 weeks ago.
Oh,
and her website is a simple enumeration of various issues that she's talking about. It's so I think she's there to run in name only, and who knows what her motives are. But if if tomorrow Doggett has a heart attack, then she gets the position, right?
No, he could still win when he's dead. or the Democrats would pick a replacement candidate, like the Central Committee or something would do that.
Oh, I see. So it's not even. So, well, there you go.
Yeah. But well, so what issues do you think are the most important in the race, or what do you think would be the most resonant with the voters, knowing that Doggett's like a real liberal Democrat and supports any kind of socialistic economic policy?
Yeah. So there are two parts to that question. One is a set of issues that are important to me, and I talk about them, and I mention why. And the other set of issues is what is important to the voters. And hopefully the two align, but because we are in a district where, majority of the people are voters, they are really not really that concerned about the economic issues that I'm talking about, but they are concerned about several things. They are concerned about thinking people. I'm not talking about the base, but thinking people are concerned about what they see at the national level and state level, and the dysfunction and the acrimony and hatred toward each other. And I talk to them about it is the system because they have made it so. With all of these wedge issues, they have separated us into the camps, and they made it so that we won't cross over from one camp to another. They've made it so that it's become a zero-sum game. They've made it so that every election is the most important election of the century, and it's simply not correct. And so the the argument there is, if you want a more harmonious and prosperous society, if you want a society that your children will be happier living in and their grandchildren, then think not only about the issues that we're talking about, but think about why the acrimony exists, which is it's a zero-sum game, and you're always taking from one side to give to the other side, and it's just a question of who is in power. And so as long as we have that, as long as we maintain that as our guiding principle, which is to take from Peter to give to Paul, and I'll change my name to Paul anytime. But as long as we maintain that, we will never have real harmony in this society. It will always be, it'll always be riven. And so that message, a lot of people are receptive to. And so when I go and talk to them, and people say, "What are you standing for?" So I say, on the moral side, every human being is their own moral agent. Nobody needs to tell people what to do, how to do it. And if you believe that, then you automatically believe in the non-aggression principle, which is you shall not inflict or initiate the use of force or fraud against others. And if you believe that, then you automatically believe in the fact that government is nothing but an exercise of force. Whether or not you think it's justified in some cases is not the question. It is always an exercise in force. Mm-hmm. And so when you limit that, when you ask or look for limited government, what you're doing is you're limiting that exercise of coercive force against others. which leads to, and this is sort of the utilitarian part of the libertarian philosophy, which leads to not just prosperity, but also harmony. And that's sort of the 30-second pitch about why people should vote libertarian. And I find people very receptive to those ideas.
Well, excellent, Clark.
Yes, in fact, I haven't really been keeping up with Doggett since I last ran against him. It was either 4 years ago, I guess maybe it was 4 or 6 years ago, 2018. But we now have a war in Ukraine, a war in the Middle East, and other wars. Now, again, going back many years, he was kind of a peace candidate, but I think that is no longer the case. I certainly don't hear his name mentioned among some of the podcasters and just other commentators I hear online and on TV. He seems to have gone with the Harris Biden, pretty much the interventionist foreign policy. And I'm not even sure, I know Julian Assange, there was a vote taken, of course, before he was released. I want to say my guy, when I was still in the race, Greg Kazar, was actually in favor of like basically not arresting him and extraditing him from. I mean, he's been released, of course, but so I guess what I'm asking, Girish, are there any good points that, I mean, however small there may be, about Doggett, or is he just another, Biden Harris Democrat? I mean, Ted was telling me all about Kamala Harris, about how when she was in California, and she's pretty bad on almost everything. So I'm just wondering, are there any rays of hope, any silver linings in Lloyd Doggett's positions?
Well, his legislative record is pretty limited, shall I say? I mean, I think people like him here because he's a reliable rubber stamper. And that's what he's done all his career. He's introduced some bills. I mean, I was just saying, okay, I was just looking up what his legislative accomplishments were, and 2 of them showed up, one for this term and one for the last term, and they included opening up a post office somewhere near Buda. That was one. And for the last one, he sponsored a bill banning import of Russian oil or something along those lines. So, I mean, earth-shaking it's not.
Right.
And just recently, he was pictured in the Statesman with standing next to somebody at ACC, where he brought in $1.5 million of pork for semiconductor research. And I mean, the system that we live in. So anyway, those are the things that he does. There's, by the way, another story in the Statesman, which was just a complete puff piece, a human interest story on Doggett as a wily incumbent Democrat. But it was as a story that provides some input and some knowledge to Austin voters. It was just content free. So the point is that, I mean, I'm sure he's brought in pork every once in a while to Austin, and even libertarians, when we run, we have this puzzle. And in fact, how do you explain to voters that that you don't believe in pork? But I think the one way to think about it is your own tax dollars going to DC, where they take a 30% cut off of that and then send it back to you. So as a legislator, as a lawmaker, as a congressman, it's your obligation to fight for every one of those dollars. Because if you don't, then your constituency is actually losing. it is their money that you're fighting for. So it would be great if we never took that money in the first place, but we don't have that choice just now. So I think what I'm saying is I would do the same if I was elected to Congress for District 37. I would fight for every dollar that I bring back to Austin. I could bring back to Austin, but I would also say quite openly that that's not how we ought to do things.
Mm-hmm.
Doggett doesn't say that last bit.
Right, right. Well, as an immigrant, I was just going to quickly ask. Now, of course, you came here over 40 years ago, I believe, on a student visa. You mentioned to obtain your master's. Now, so I should ask, or one of us obviously should ask you about immigration.
Mm-hmm.
It is probably very different now. Maybe the whole policy is worse than it was in the 80s. But as a rule, what are your thoughts on immigration, and do you find many immigrants in favor? I mean, I'm glad you came to our country, Girish. Believe me, we need millions of more people such as yourself. But right now, it just seems like when you say that, when you say immigrant today, people think of people coming here to get on welfare, and that's not really true. But so anyway, yeah. So let me shut up. And what are your thoughts on the immigration policies, and what should it be going forward?
Yeah, I think at the very least. So I mean, there's layers and layers to that question too, right? There's issues of birthright citizenship. There's issues of non-skilled, unskilled labor. There's the issue of manual labor, and we need all of those. And then there is the issue of skilled labor and so on and so forth. I think at the very least, we should enact laws that that every degree certificate, master's or above, in any of the hard sciences that you can define, and you can list them, it's not more than 10, 12, 15, or whatever. If there is a foreign student who comes to this country and gets a senior level degree, either a master's or a PhD, then a green card comes attached to their degree certificate. And I think if we just did that, we would eliminate so much angst. And that doesn't mean these people are going to stay, because a lot of my friends back in India are a lot wealthier than I am here in the United States. I mean, I live a very nice, comfortable life, but these places themselves are becoming dynamic, entrepreneurial, rich. They're doing that, and at some point, people will make that decision for themselves, whether they want to stay in the United States or they want to go back to their home country and start whatever it is that they want to start there. But that's at least one of the things. And I am a Milton Friedman kind of a guy. I'm not very rabid about this. And like all libertarians, I believe that we should have open borders and a free flow of people. But at the same time, whether we use it right, whether it is 100% true or not, open borders are incompatible with a welfare society. At least that's what Milton Friedman has always claimed. And I kind of sort of believe that. And so let's fix the problem first, where we reduce or eliminate what this welfare society is about, and then build and construct laws around what is advisable and what is appropriate for both skilled and unskilled labor to come in. And I do think that at least some part of this is a database issue, where I don't understand why we make it so tough for even unskilled labor. Why not create a database that matches? We know who they are, where they are. They come and go as they please. They're not paying coyotes $5,000 every time they want to come in. And, again, I mean, those are sort of technocratic issues or technocratic solutions. And we could explore those, but there is no way you're going to explore those until the temperatures on these issues get lowered.
Yeah, it would seem like it'd be very hard for any kind of immigration reform to pass. I know there was that bill that Trump put a kibosh on after some Republicans and Democrats were going to pass it last year. But from a libertarian point of view, I don't know how good it was, but it seems like it'd be very difficult to pass any kind of bill that would allow more immigrants to come into the country, even legally. And a lot of the people that have been coming here, there's no way to come legally except to pretend that they're refugees, and most of them really aren't. But that's all they've got. That's the only way to come here. And it would seem like it should be, as you said, easier for people just to sign up and come in after they've been checked out or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I do think that the process should be just a lot easier, because we need their work, they need the work, they need to work. I'm not quite sure whether they need to live in the United States. I mean, not need to. I'm not sure that they want to live in the United States. If they could live in their own town and just catch a bus back or catch a flight back. So to the extent that we can match people easily, and we can find them and as needed or not, or facilitate them with some sort of a temporary visa that allows them to go back and forth easily on a business visa or a labor visa, those are things we should try. The rest of the things are highly charged issues. I mean, people in a country get to decide who comes to live here or not, rightly or wrongly. They get to choose that. And I don't think we have a way of figuring that out in such a supercharged environment. So let's do little things. That's sort of my immigration position.
Well, great. Well, gentlemen, believe it or not, we're down to about 30 seconds. So real quick, Girish, tell us tell the folks where they can find you online.
Yeah, so my website is girishaltekar.com or usdistrict37.com. They are both go to the same place. US District 37 means that you don't have to remember my name.